Hi, everyone. Welcome to Design for More. I'm Angie Billen, your host. Today, I have an amazing guest with me, Jyoti Pannu. She is a career coach and a realtor. Hi, Jyoti.
Hi, Angie. Good to be here.
Thank you. So today we're going to talk about, as it's a new year, we're going to talk about not just New Year's resolutions, something more specific, which is goal setting and making your goals stick, because this is something that comes up so much with my clients. Like they want to implement these new changes into their life or transformation. So it's really important that we break down how we can make our goals stick with some and how to implement it with some like routinal, behavioral things that we can actually put into our routine and structure of our daily life. So I know you do a lot of that with your clients. So walk me through kind of what are some of your goals this year?
Yeah, so Angie, it's a very important topic. I know we're almost towards the end of January, but still, a lot of us attach goal setting to like the beginning of the week or beginning of the year, but we could do that at any point in the year.
Mhm.
So, one, if somebody hasn't set their goals, targets for this year, it's never too late. It's always important to just sit down, do that inventory of what do you want out of this week, this year, this month, whatever that may be. So one is that I think the attachment that we have to beginning of the year, beginning of a new birthday, beginning of whatever that may be, let's not feel that attached to it. And you could set them at any point. The very first step when I work with my clients and even for myself is really looking at what is the goal for, like what's the why behind it. For example, if it's health related, is it coming out of a need that, let's say, there's a current challenge that you're trying to address, or is it coming out of that pure, I want to improve my health? Same with your business. Is it because your business is doing really well and you want to scale it up, or that it's not doing well? So understand the why behind what the purpose of your goal is. And then from there, just clarifying what is your outcome that you're looking for. So clarify that target that you're working towards. And then you gather that information. What do you need to be able to get to that target? Also, it's very important to look at, what's going to help you towards that goal and also what is going to get in the way. So all of that, I would say, depending on the size of the goal, let's say if you're setting it for the full year, I would say for the first, like, take a month, take at least a couple of weeks to a month to gather all that information so that you're planning ahead with all the information that you need. Still staying open to things will come up that you haven't planned for and be flexible. Like, it's amazing to plan, but you also need to stay flexible with the changes.
Mhm.
So if it's a bigger goal, I do like a 30, 60, 90-day approach. But I'll break it down to more of a quarterly goal. I also do that as well. So every 3 months, I think a lot more people are becoming aware of that. This is where, because I worked in corporate and in healthcare, all of our goals were always a longer year goal, but we also had the every 3 months we're setting certain targets and working towards those. Why that's important is when you have especially a bigger goal or even a smaller goal, when you break it into smaller chunks, it's not as cumbersome. It becomes more manageable. So whatever the length of time that you have, clarify your target, understand your why, gather the information that you need, gather what it is that you need to succeed, and also address things that you know could become barriers. So that's the first step. And then the other thing is from there, create that visible action plan. It's all wonderful to gather information. We've all done it where research feels like you've done something, but if you're not taking any action, it's not going to go anywhere.
Mhm.
And then from there, you're starting to test what works, adjust as you need, and adjust frequently. If it's depending on what the size of the goal is. For example, let's say it's health related. It's something you're working out or you're trying to reduce your blood sugar. I know in our community that becomes a big challenge. Measure it regularly and adjust because you could be doing something and maybe it's working really well. How do you tweak that up? Or it's not working well. What changes do you need to make?
Mhm.
And then set points to measure your outcomes. So that kind of builds momentum. I've done this, I've seen this result, then you're more pumped up to go to the next level.
Okay, wonderful. Love all of that. So walk me through if I'm working with you and I say to you, Jyoti, I want to like scale my business. Maybe it's bringing in more clients.
Yeah.
What would I be looking like? What would I be expecting for the first month in terms of working with you?
So one, again, depending on the specific business, you're looking at what is it that is not working well right now? So
Okay.
understanding what is working well and what's working really well. One part of that assessment could be speaking with your clients when, what's worked well, what keeps you coming back, what helps you refer other people to me. So understanding what's working well, scaling that, putting more energy towards that, and
Hmm.
also learning from them and from others. At times you'll have, I know I have that where you'll have a client that may have done one or two sessions with you and then they drop off.
Hmm.
Reaching out and understanding like what didn't work well, how can I adjust? So learning from what's going well and what's not going well. And out of that, let's say you have a target of making X amount of money. So let's say it's 15,000 and you're breaking it down into you want to make 15,000 in 3 months or 15,000 in 1 month even, looking at what your programs are that are offering that. And when it comes to how many, so let's say I'll start with maybe 10,000, that'll make it easier. 10,000 and your program is $1,000 per person. That means you need 10 people.
Hmm.
In order to get 10 people, it's not that we're going to speak with 10 people and get all those 10 clients. You and I both know it's you're going to need to at least 10x that and speak to about, 50 to 100 people
Right.
because it does take a lot of work to get those clients to buy in. Um, and then those that do convert, use that as leverage to understand what is happening, where with those that are converting to become your clients, what is leading them to become your client and amplify that. So the next round, when you're meeting with the 50, your conversion rate would be higher as you're bringing them in.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. I think another thing that comes up a lot with my clients is the motivation piece. So I don't know if this is something you can touch on. Like we'll start working on goals, like you said, 30, 60, 90 days.
Yeah,
At some point in the, let's just say, for example, 90 days, they lose motivation.
yeah,
So whether it's health related or maybe it's an addiction, like, I'm trying to cut smoking out of my life.
yeah,
What can we do as coaches to work on that motivation piece to really get them like fueled up again?
yeah. That's very important. And I think as humans, we all have that. And I think, you know, things that feel rewarding, like smoking or drinking or even having sugars, they feel rewarding and but they're causing a lot of damage to our health. So one, again, going back to that beginning of recognizing what your why is. And when you have that why, your reason behind doing this, having that somewhere visibly posted. I do that for myself. I am a vision boarding person. So I have it visible so that anytime you're sort of falling back down, you're able to sort of go back and remind yourself of that. So for me, when it comes to my health goals, in the past, I always prioritize my work over my health, and luckily I track. But that's a very key important part of staying on track of your goals is track, even if it's gone well or not gone well, keep on tracking because then you can go back and take a look in that last 1 month period. Let's say it's weight loss that you're looking at. Where did it drop? Where did it go up? I know we've all heard it. Tracking is what's going to help. And
Hmm.
then if you're also tracking, if it's weight loss or sugar related, you're also tracking your consumption. What changed during those days when it went up or went down, and use that. Similar to what I said in business, amplify what's working,
Right.
decrease what's not working. But we can't do that unless we're tracking. So that's
Yeah,
very important.
that's a great point. And I think that's something that works for me, but also something I teach to my clients is like you said, like get the vision board or get like even a calendar, like a whiteboard
Yeah. Yeah.
and track week to week. Like, write out there what your very clearly what your intention is, what your goal is. And then I always say to my clients, like, reward yourself. If you made that goal this week, like however big or
Absolutely.
small it is, give yourself a reward that's realistic according to your lifestyle, right? And then you'll see like in 4 weeks, like, wow, I maybe you made three or four of your goals, like you accomplished majority of them. Maybe you accomplished everything.
Yeah.
So I think it just helps us feel better, right? And it also helps us, like you said, like keep moving forward. So it gives you that motivation, like I can do this, whether it's health related or business or whatever. So what are some things that you've set up for yourself this new year?
Yeah.
Like, do you have any goals that you've set up for yourself for 30, 60, 90 days?
Yeah, yeah, no, I'll get into that, but I just wanted to just double click on what you said about celebration. That is so, so important because when we are doing so often hard things, when we're trying to make a change, if we're not celebrating even the small things, the momentum gets lost very quickly. And
Mhm.
when we're celebrating, have somebody that helps you with that accountability piece as well. So let's say you're
Right.
tracking, if you can, do it with a trusted partner, do it with maybe it's a family member or a coach, do it with somebody that helps you stay accountable. That makes you, celebrate together, and then it also stays that helps you stay on track. In
Yeah.
terms of my personal goals, I'll share a couple.
Mhm.
One is my own health. As I mentioned, I was in working in the healthcare sector when the pandemic happened. So for the
Mhm.
last 6 years, it's been 6 years now, I've been using that as my excuse. Pandemic happened, and that's where I kind of stopped running, stopped going to the gym as much, all of those things. And I had a wake up call last year when, with my work, it was just so stressful when I was in the corporate sector, and I had to take time off because of the stress. And with that came, like, I really need to prioritize my health. You could have all the wealth in the world, but if you're not feeling well and if you're not around for your family, then what is the point of, generating all of that income?
Mhm.
So one with that is I knew I needed to make changes, but I also knew that if it's a drastic change, it makes it very difficult to stick to. One example is I was running before the pandemic quite a bit. I was running with a group and I'd stopped that. So it was very difficult to go back and pick that up. So my goal then became I'm going to start. There's a lot of running clubs, and I'm sure where you are, there are
Mhm.
as well, with the running room and some of the local clubs. I run with a local club here, and they will help you start from beginning to, so you could like learn to run if you need to do that, or you start with a 5K and you're going at a pace, you're going with other people that are at the same place. So that's been one where I'm slowly getting back into running and working out. Another one is for my business. So I have my coaching business as well as I'm a realtor. So how do I dedicate time to each, and how do I prioritize when, let's say, there's, one area of that business requires more attention? How do I do that on a regular basis so that the other one does not fall through the cracks? So again, accountability, tracking.
Mhm.
And then with, let's say for real estate, I set my goals based on like how many deals do I want to make this year? Let's say if I'm aiming for 10, I am very realistic with the current market and what it is that we need to do.
Mhm.
Let's say if it's 10 deals, that's, selling 10 homes. That means I need to speak with at least, 1,000 people throughout the year. I'm not just saying in a month. I
Right.
need to speak with that many people who are ready to sell. Out of those, then have those conversations, showcase what my ability is to support them. And you build those connections and then you work towards that. Tracking is key. I have a CRM that, so that's where I manage my client communication, where enter all the information and then I go back and I take a look. Follow up is again key. That is one thing that I don't know how you are with your businesses, but I always find like I'll have somebody reach out, and because it is a one person, it's a solopreneurship. So I do at times have difficulty just following when it comes to following up with people that have reached out and they want to use my
Mhm.
services. So tracking that as well. So
Right.
looking at all the parts of my business that help me succeed, and then keeping traction on each one of those and making sure that I am measuring that. I'm meeting my daily goals when it comes to how many conversations I'm having, meeting my weekly goals, and then seeing how that is then going into my overall goals and the results I'm getting. And as I said at the beginning, and then tweaking what isn't working and using more of what is working. And then another one I have is, let's say a lot of my clients will say, hey, I'm thinking about selling or I'm
Mhm.
thinking about buying. How do I plan? So I always say, don't make a rush decision. Let's say you're looking to, and most realtors will say, no, 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 the time is now. But I take the approach of more of a coach where don't make a rush decision. Look at what your finances are. Look at what you
Mm.
can easily afford on a month-to-month basis. Work with a mortgage expert, work with a realtor, decide on the area that you want to live in. So when we're planning ahead, it allows us to make those decisions that are more aligned with what it is that we need, versus just going with, the market's doing this, I'm going to do this. It doesn't flow well.
Yeah.
It may feel good in the moment, but in the long term, it does hurt you. So same thing, like plan ahead and look at what you need to succeed sort of in the next phase of your life.
I love that. And I love that you're really advising your clients, like you're being patient and you're advising them to be patient because you're absolutely correct. Like I've worked with realtors in the past where they really rush you, right? Where they make it seem like this is the time, like it's now or
Yeah,
never type of thing. And it just doesn't, the outcome is never well, right?
yeah, yeah.
So no, so thank you for sharing that. I think the other thing that comes up a lot, probably in your work as well, is how do we balance as women, as mothers, owning a business? How do you balance? Now you've got two businesses and obviously a family. So how do you balance your personal time? And how do you incorporate that into your goal setting?
So a part of it is looking at what is important to you, and what is important to those that are around you that you care about. So one thing that I had to do was I'm a very social person and I have about 4 or 5 different groups of friends and there's always something happening with one of those groups every week. So looking at like what is actually giving me joy, what helps me sort of recharge,
Okay.
keeping that because there's if you start dropping those things, you'll feel drained, you'll feel exhausted. Same with the family if we're, I mean, my business is that it's very flexible. I can time my day, but my daughter's at school during the day, my husband's at work during the day. So the only time I actually have with them is at dinner every single day. And it's funny because, like he's Portuguese and family eating together as a family is very, very important to him. So all of us making sure that, when it's dinner time, we're all sitting together and eating and having conversations. Phones, I know we're all addicted to our phones, but making sure that when we're eating and we're having those conversations, our phones are not with us. And then every weekend that we alternate our kids when it comes to when we have them, but
Mhm.
every weekend just making sure that that set time aside for with the family, with the children, but also him and I, like having that time together so
Right.
that we're aligned, we're moving forward together. Especially I find that because it's so busy and sometimes it could feel like, you're sitting side by side watching Netflix, that can feel like it's good use of our time, but it's
Mhm.
not. You're not connecting with the person that's next to you.
Right.
So those are some of the things that we do.
Yeah, that's interesting you bring that up because I think, like you said, like phones and social media, it's really consuming, right? And a lot of people, including myself, at times you get consumed by just being on social media or like zoning out and being on Netflix for a few hours or whatever. So like you're saying, I think what you're saying is also reflect on your values and your boundaries, right? Like what's important to me at this point in my life, because it may not be what was important to you last year or 10 years ago. And
Right.
then creating those boundaries, which is what you're expressing when you said like, I have a busy social life and sometimes I have to pick and choose which event I'm going to attend, or you know what I mean? Like how much time am I actually going to put into this, I don't know, birthday or event or whatever is going on
Yeah.
for you, right? So those
Yeah.
boundaries are huge. And I think that's where we have a lot of us have issues. It's like the majority of us, especially women, we're people pleasers, right? How do we create a boundary where we're not prioritizing the other person, like, really focusing on yourself and making yourself a priority? Because that's like the first step of actually creating that boundary and following through. So I don't know
Yeah.
if you have
And
trouble
you
with that or if you have like those challenges.
I'm one of those lucky people that have access to you. So we've had conversations in the past where you've talked to me about like setting those boundaries and making sure that we are able to say no to those things that aren't energizing to us. And even relationships. There are relationships at one phase of our life, they were amazing and they were great for us, but now they're draining. I'm sure they're draining for the other person as well. So one is having that, like doing that inventory of what does it look like now? And then, like you said, boundaries. And I find communication is such a huge key when it comes to setting boundaries, even with your partner. My husband's great when it comes to supporting, but his love language is different from mine. And mine is that, at the end of a busy week, I actually need alone time where I'm just reading a book or something. And I don't even want to talk to anybody. Like mornings on the weekends, I'm
Mhm.
not a talker. Like I like to just have my coffee, read a book. And he likes to communicate. So, very early on, we had those conversations about, hey, like mornings, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. During the day, we'll spend time.
Yeah,
And people that genuinely care about you, they'll respect those boundaries.
right.
People that care about you, they'll actually learn from you when it comes to setting those boundaries. And
Mm.
when we do communicate that, I find with, that same level of compassion and empathy, like letting them know why it is. Like in my case, I'm talking all week long, so I need that quiet time to recharge. And yeah, like it's just surround yourself. And then the other thing I'll say that I did mention before that comes into play in goal setting as well as even the boundaries part is surround yourself with people that are like-minded,
Right.
especially as women, especially in this day and age, with coaching, even with real estate, it can be very lonely if you're only around people that, they work a 9 to 5 corporate. They're not going to get the fact that you do need to do some business planning or some work in the evening or on the weekend, however that may be.
Mm.
So being around people that are of the similar mindset, and it doesn't have to come from your family. There's so many, local groups and
Mhm.
events that come up when it comes to networking with similar minded people. That goes a long way as well. I find that very helpful.
And I'm glad you brought that up. In terms of the networking piece, what would you advise? Because again, a lot of people ask me, not just clients, but just, friends and family, like, how do you get out there and network? How do I meet other people? How do I meet people in this industry? Or how do I make, like, even just socially have like that outlet? So, what's worked for you in the past or at this time in terms of networking?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I had the same hesitation because I went from, corporate and then before that, the hospital setting. So I was always surrounded by so many people. And
Mhm.
then I went on my own and it felt just lonely all of a sudden. A few things that worked were one, the your local city likely has some sort of a business entrepreneur section that brings people like yourself together. And often they'll actually have a women's specific organization within that as well. So I would say, like, look into what the city offers. And then more broadly, there's sometimes provincial level or area level work that's also being done. On top of that, we are so lucky that we have, Instagram and Facebook where we can look up like-minded groups. Facebook groups, I find, has quite a bit. Again, don't be like me because that's what I did at the beginning is I started joining so many of them that became draining instead of
Mm,
energizing and support. So be mindful of how many of them you're joining because if you join a group, chances are they'll have at least, let's say, one event every 1 month or every 2 months. But if you're a part of five, six groups, that's a lot of events. So that's a lot of energy being taken away.
mhm.
So pick and choose and maybe just do like a trial of what you're looking at. Another thing I highly recommend is, especially women that
Mm,
have moved from working for somebody to now working on their own. And let's say they're in a role like yourself or myself, where you are doing a lot more speaking and you're doing a lot more public speaking, is Toastmasters.
mm,
It's a group, I'm sure you've heard about it,
mhm.
but they're everywhere. And what they do is they really help you build up your skills when it comes to presenting and when it comes to engaging people, when it comes to just having conversations that are meaningful. And I'm a part of one of those as well here. And I find there too, you're around people who are working on improvement. So
Right.
one, it helps you with improvement, and two, you also build connections where I get referrals from that group as well. So it's
Okay.
that bi-directional flow of I'm learning and then I'm also able to support others around me.
That's amazing. Yes, I have heard of Toastmasters. I've never attended, but I do know that you attended. So that's good to know. And it's also good to know, like you said, like there's one in every city and every community will have something for
Yeah.
you. You just have to, again, maybe set that goal that this month, in the next 30 days, I'm going to reach out to one group or five groups or whatever, whatever feels reasonable for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
And,
let's
and
circle
pace
back. Yeah.
yourself. Pace yourself.
Yes, exactly. So let's circle back to the 30, 60, 90. So I know we talked a little bit about kind of what your tracking looks like, what type of routine you can bring into your life. What's one takeaway that our clients who are listening today can probably apply to their day-to-day life? Like, what's one thing that works for you? Because for me, I'll share what works for me. It's whatever my routine is, or whatever goal that I'm setting up for the week. I try to implement it every morning because I know in the morning is like when I'm probably the most, motivated and alert. So that's my kind of tool or trick or whatever you want to call it. So like when I'm having my coffee in the morning, that's when I set that goal. I have my journal out and I'll write down the statement or something that I'm going to be doing that day to work towards the weekend goal. So what's something that you can share that, people can use?
Yeah, and that's I highly recommend people doing things that they find difficult first thing in the morning, then it's out of the way. For
Mhm.
example, when it comes to going to the gym, a lot of people have difficulty going at the end of the day, but going in the morning, really the only thing that can get in the way is yourself. So you have that sense of control over, am I going or not going? It's not, you have to pick up your children or nothing else can get in the way when you're choosing to go in the morning, unless you live in Ontario and it's cold or it's a snowstorm. So I like what you're doing is what I also do. I'm actually like an end of day planner. So at the end of the day, when I'm sort of tidying up my workspace, I will then make a goal for the next day. So then I know how that's going. Weekly planning, I would say Sunday evening, carve out, even if it's 30 minutes for yourself.
Mhm.
And I also say don't just plan out what your business needs, plan out what you need as well out of the next week. So when you're mindful and when you're balancing the two, and when I say you, that includes, your relationships as well. When you're planning that out, then you're carving out that time for the rest of the week. You know which bucket is doing what. If you had to make a little bit of adjustment, at least it's planned ahead versus you're just, anything that comes your way, you're taking on.
Right. Yeah, no, I love that. Um, Is there anything else you wanted to share or add or yeah, share with our audience today?
Yeah, one of the things I'll say is there are so many options now on our phones, right in our palms, all day, every day. There are tracking apps, and let's say if it's health related, there's my Fitness Pal. Not that I'm connected to any of these apps, but I have them on my phone as useful. Another one is a lot of people at the beginning of the year start looking at being more mindful. There are mindfulness slash meditation apps that are on the phone. First thing in the morning, if you get up and you do a 5 minutes of meditation, it sets the tone for the rest of your day. And I've actually seen research that says like when if you do it as you're waking up, your brain is still in that state that it absorbs more, like your subconscious mind absorbs more.
Hmm.
So try to use what you already have. I had a few people that said, "Hey, my target was to start journaling, but I just find it so difficult to find the time." And I said, like, journaling does not even have to be a page a day. It could
Yeah.
be, a sentence a day, and you could do it in your notes app. There's so many journaling apps that you get on your phone. So if you start with that habit of once a day, I'm going to write a sentence, chances are you'll end up writing more. But just do it on your phone. Like you don't have to be tied. It's better to write it on a book because I think it just enters your subconscious a bit more. But make it easy for you to follow through. And often things we could do it on our phones are a lot easier.
Yeah, like I think it's important to be realistic about what your life looks like, right? And
Yeah.
bringing these tools and habits and tricks into your life according to what works for you. Like you, only you know that, right? So someone like yourself or myself, we can help navigate and guide you to different options, different tools, but at the end of the day, you know what works for you. In terms of the meditation piece that you were talking about right now, that I totally agree with. Like I notice a huge difference within myself when I'm doing my meditation first thing in the morning. And sometimes, like you said, like if it's while you're getting up, I think that makes a huge difference because of what you're absorbing. But there's mornings where I don't feel like doing my meditation in the morning, and I notice a huge difference in my mood. So definitely, pay attention to what works for you, pay attention to your body, and that awareness is going to help kind of get you through to the next piece, which is motivation and tracking and goal setting, right? So like it all works, like it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think, Angie, the only thing I mentioned in the conversation so far, and I touched on it briefly at the beginning, is chances are things are going to not go well at one point in your goal planning. So if you have a goal, you dedicated your time and effort to do something and it didn't go well, um, be easy on yourself, first of all. Like,
Mhm.
don't see it as a failure, see it as a data point. Like, it's given you something that you could work on. So, you don't need a perfect long-term 10-year plan.
Right.
Start with the next 30 days. What do I need? What do I want out of the next 30 days or even the next week? And what does it look like? And adjust frequently. So, like, go slow at this, especially if you haven't done this before. But if you have done it before, when you're doing that initial planning phase, look at what worked really well for you and
Okay.
again bring more of that.
So I think what you're saying is like also like just kind of do a reset. Is that what you mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, mentally like reset or yeah, okay. That makes sense. Yeah, because again, that is going to be something that's going to come up, right? The hurdles or something doesn't go as well as you wanted or a relapse of some sort, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's really good for, like you said, to give yourself that compassion and just reset and try again
Yeah.
or set an intention where it's like, okay, I'm starting over,
Yeah.
starting a
And,
new
and
phase.
look at maybe, whatever didn't go well, what did it teach you? Like in coaching, that's one of the things that we do. Like there's always a lesson.
Yes.
And I mean always a lesson with an asterisk, but be kind to yourself. Look at why it didn't work and how you can adjust your plan going forward.
Yeah, love that. Thank you so much for being here today. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience?
No, thank you so much for having me. I think I wish you, everyone that's listening, I wish you all the best on setting your goals. If you do need support or if you have a question about anything that we talked about, I'm more than happy to have a chat. I'm sure Angie will add my contact on the
Mhm.
show notes, but it was lovely. This was a great conversation. Thank you.
Thanks so much.